Oh, I see how it is.
You always take his side.
Or like the one time that I think it was you, me, and Andrew were playing something, and I started going into my if the Godfather was Bane. Like I was doing my Godfather impression as like the whole darkness.
I don't know if I remember that or not.
I was like, oh, you think darkness is your ally? You really are dumped in the dark. I was born in it, raised in it, molded by it.
That's good. I love that. That's what we need to do more often is go on to the VoIP stuff on Sea of Thieves and just
Oh my gosh.
come up with voices that are like one character doing another character.
Oh, yeah. You want to know how I got these scars? My father, he was a drinker.
I could pull off the, what's his face?
I have a very particular set of skills. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. I will find you. I will kill you.
There's a darkness as your ally. So
Tasty.
was thinking, we talk a lot about music, right?
We do talk a lot about music. We've talked about concerts,
Concerts.
going back in time to concerts.
Right.
Favorite songs and albums and stuff.
Like what you would go back and listen to for the first time, like if you could.
Talked about the mind-melting fact that
Aerosmith. Yeah, I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. Is
Never
the
got
first
an
number
award
one
to-
hit.
Yeah. It's crazy.
The travesty. Okay, so if you could pick one song to listen on repeat for 24 hours and you get $1 million, this is just an easy question.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But you can't skip it. You can't you have to be awake for that solid 24 hours. You can't go to sleep or anything like that. Has to be on repeat.
Man.
What would it be? And you get $1 million. Like, so I mean, it's a very low it's a very low stakes. But like,
Yeah.
if you pause it or anything, like, so you're going to the
That's a
back.
good one, though. Like, I like that. The reason I laughed was the first thing that popped into my mind was Trololo. yeah. I'm like, I couldn't do that for 24 hours. I think I'd go insane by like hour 4 or whatever it was. I'm trying to think. There's like several songs that I think would probably fit the bill for me. Like
Okay.
I have a lot of songs that I really enjoy enough that I
Right.
think that I could listen to them over and over again. But I was trying to pull up a playlist because I know that I've got the one that I'm thinking of is on this playlist, and I want to see if I can find it real quick.
Okay. I was like, man, like what song do I pick? Like, so I'm like just thinking like, oh, do I want like a really long song? Do I want a short song?
Yeah.
Because what kind of brought this back into my head was when I was working at Chipotle, like obviously in the back of the house, like we would have like the speakers going and everything like that.
Yeah.
So 2 fun stories. The first one was, for whatever reason, I went to go grab food. I come back. My assistant manager, my apprentice, is playing We Love to Party by the Vanga Boys,
Yeah.
but it's been going on for an hour at this point.
Oh, jeez.
So
So
then
any person that's been in there longer
Right.
than 30 minutes is like...
it went on for 4 hours. Just that song.
I love that.
so then I was like, okay. But then that was at Highland Square. When I moved to Fairlawn, my dishwasher came in for his night shift, and he's like, you know what song we have to play? I was like, what are you talking about? And I looked at the date, and it was September 21st.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
So we listened to September by Earth, Wind, and Fire
Right.
the entire night.
Jeez Louise.
The thing that makes me the most upset about that, I still don't know the words to that song.
I don't think anybody does.
It's like,
Everybody knows that
it's like,
intro part.
do you remember the 21st night of September?
And that's it.
Yeah.
Only Trolls fans at this point in time know more
Yeah,
of
exactly.
that song.
But yeah, so like that's kind of what brought this to mind. I need to turn the volume down.
For me, I think so. This is one that's probably a little bit obscure for most people,
Okay.
And it's not an upbeat song in that sense either. But it's the song "Victory" by the Avett Brothers.
Okay.
It's just a favorite of mine, and it's one that like the words of it and stuff like that just kind of hit just right, and the mood of the song is pretty chill. So I think that I could survive going through a day. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah,
with
for
it
sure.
playing the full time and stuff. I guess one of the questions I'd have to ask about that is like, is it a headphones or is it like a Bluetooth speaker?
No, it's
or
like
is it
out loud.
Out loud?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody in your life is listening to this song.
I
as
think
well.
Victory would be the one I'd want then, because
Okay.
especially when you get to the point where you're ready to sleep.
Yeah.
Victory's a little softer, so I think it would be
Yeah.
easier to kind of pass out to.
Yeah, my gut reaction when I thought of this is just more so funny. It would be Oceans, because I don't have to listen to it like 4 times. did 24 hours.
Yeah. Super long songs like that.
Right. But it was one of those things where I was like, I was really like thinking of it as like, okay, do I want a song that I want to learn? Like I know,
Right.
but I don't want to learn. But honestly,
After 24 hours, you know you're gonna like, you know every note of that song.
yeah. So I was thinking, I think I would probably pick, and I just want to make sure the title of the song is right. "Feed the Machine" by Poor Man's Poison.
Okay.
Like after our middle
Feed the Machine.
Yeah, after our middle campaign, the one we did with Noah.
Yeah.
Like I had one of the songs from Poor Man's Poison was on because I'm weird. I make playlists for my characters, like what my characters
I get that.
because it's a really cool way.
that.
It's a really cool way to like get into your character. 'Cause
Yeah.
like for casual players, like that's a hard thing to do is like get into the mindset of your
Right.
character. Like, oh, I wouldn't do this, but my character would. Like, it's hard to bridge
really
that gap.
deep dive.
So I figure, but like,
Getting into the music and like what would they read? What would they listen
Yeah.
to? What would they
And-
eat? All that kind of stuff.
And this one is basically just talking about like, you know, the corporations and the, you know, you basically wake up, go to work,
Yeah.
like and just feeding the machine and everything.
Gotcha.
They're
It's like Rage Against the Machine, but less angry.
exactly. It's like Mumford and Sons.
Yeah.
And like
okay.
AJR kind of in that vein, like the folky.
Gotcha.
Banjo
That's right.
kind of
That's
music.
right where the Avett Brothers sit too. Is kind of in that same vein and stuff. So that's cool. So one fun thing that'll kind of tie us into what we're going to talk about when we come back from the intro will be that we took a trip one time with the youth group, and if I remember correctly, I want to say the trip was somewhere in the ballpark of like 4 hours.
I actually pulled it up when we were talking about that because that's why you know, peek behind the curtain. Before we were talking about like where it was, we couldn't remember where it was. It was about 3 hours and 15 minutes.
So that one's a different trip.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking about another trip that we took with the youth group where we legitimately for 4 hours played the same song, and it was something
really?
It was something like Trololo. It was one of those like super annoying songs
like,
that nobody knows the words to and stuff like that. So,
well, I know. I think we would always wear out Boneless on road trips for a youth group too.
Boneless and Tsunami, we had some of those that were like rave music that we would play in the bus and everything.
Yeah,
but,
the rental companies hated us because the shocks would always have to be readjusted.
Yeah. And it was usually like right when everybody fell asleep is when we start cranking that stuff, and we're just like, all right, time to wake up.
Yeah, I would play like Chop Suey at like max volume.
Yeah. All right, so you ready to dive into some youth group stories today?
Yep. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Josh. Pause for non-dramatic effect.
We're lame. Oh.
Recognize me? No? Well, I'm Josh.
I got suspended from school because of Josh.
You're going to be there with me in every way imaginable, Josh.
Josh is truly in a trance, yes.
I went to high school with Josh, and I can tell you right now, he's a terrific kisser.
Hi, I'm Josh.
Josh, these are people's jobs we're talking about, Josh.
Josh walking in the door wasn't even close.
Josh, you are a muffin-snuggling pirate puncher.
Josh is a good guy. We can talk to him.
Please welcome Joshua.
All right, so Josh and I have been talking about this. We talked about it on here a couple of times, but we've been talking about it together for a while about telling some stories from our days in youth ministry, which oddly enough, we'll share a picture online this week sometime while you guys are able to listen to this of us at a lock-in,
Right,
which right now was just last weekend.
Yeah.
We'll share a picture of us and maybe a video of us at the lock-in and stuff because we took one when it was in like the wee hours of the morning when everybody starts to feel like they're dying and stuff.
Right.
So, but we wanted to share some youth group stories. We have some really funny things. We were going to kick it off by telling you about some of the games that we used to play when we were in youth group. Josh is going to kind of lead the way on that one because Josh was, I think, involved in just about every single game and skit that we ever did.
So if you guys know like how this podcast started, you know, we were doing our VBS Facebook or YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So we would do like crazy skits and stuff like that. Like we did a Bean Boozled thing we did with teams, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Which we need to revisit because they have new flavors and stuff.
The condiment thing.
I was gonna say the condiment thing where like if you look very closely, I like had to dry scoop cocoa powder and I like laugh and it just like
I did the zoom in on
like,
your
it
poof
just,
when
like,
you did it.
poofs out like chocolate powder.
Yeah, that one was it was condiment roulette. You just
Yeah.
had to pick a number from a bowl, and whatever number condiment it corresponded with on the table,
Right.
you had to either eat it or wear
Right.
it, depending on what you drew
Yeah,
from
and
a
then
different bowl.
so we drew numbers and that number, and then you rolled a die, and I think evens were wear it and odds
Yep.
were eat
Yeah,
it.
that's exactly what it was.
So that is kind of the tamer version of some of the skits that we used to do.
Oh boy, yeah.
Two of my favorite ones involve food, oddly enough, or food adjacent things.
Okay. I already know what one of these is.
So the first one, it was we used to go to Snowbird.
Yep.
And this is where I think we got the idea for the skit.
It is, yeah.
Essentially, it would be like a group of the counselors, or in this case, youth leaders. We would all be like sitting before we would start a message and worship and stuff like that. And one of them would come out and be like, "Oh no, I forgot to bring my deodorant."
Yeah.
And then the entire crowd would say, "Use the mayonnaise." So there was a jar of a family-sized jar of not peanut butter but mayonnaise.
Yeah.
Sitting on the.
This was not a weapon.
Yeah, sitting on the well,
Depends on how you look at it.
sitting on the stage, and they would just take a handful of it, and then they would like smear it all over their armpits, and then take the excess, and then put it back in the mayonnaise.
Yeah.
So then the next one would come out and be like, I forgot my shaving cream.
Yep.
So then and the whole crowd would be like, use the mayonnaise. So then,
And to be clear on that one, they were using a real razor
right.
to actually shave someone's legs with
Right.
mayonnaise as
Right.
the cream, basically.
I mean, and more often than not, depending on the crowd, we would get somebody whose legs weren't as hairy.
right? Yeah.
But if
preferably
you wanted
preferably it was a girl who had like stubble.
Yeah.
Not a guy
So-
like my legs.
Yeah, exactly. So it would just build and build and build. I think so. We did shampoo, deodorant, sunscreen.
They hurt their foot and they would
Yeah.
rub it on the
Yeah,
foot and
yeah.
ankle.
Like I twisted my ankle. What do I do?
But every time they're yelling like, "Don't waste it!" And so
Yeah.
every time they get done doing one of these things, putting it on all these different body parts, shaving with it, brushing teeth with it. Eventually,
I was gonna say, and usually the second to last one was, I forgot my toothpaste.
Toothpaste, yeah.
What do? Use the mayonnaise. So you would scoop out the mayonnaise that has been whatever's left at this point.
and the brave ones would dump and scoop at the same time to
Right.
get globs of it in their mouth.
So one of the last times we did it, I like scooped it. I brushed my teeth. There was a little bit in the jar. I tipped it up, and I gargled it like mouthwash.
Right. To which we all say, "Don't waste it."
And then so the last person was like, I forgot my milk for my cereal.
Yeah.
And they would eat the cereal with the mayonnaise.
And actually eat it.
Yeah.
And so that's where like that was the gross out factor of
Right.
that one was through the roof. Like there were times where at Snowbird and in youth group we actually had like at least one kid that would go and like throw up in
Right,
the
yeah,
bathroom and stuff
because
it
it was-
just too
yeah.
much for him.
So I did the one time
which
when
for those kids like grow up.
Yeah.
You know?
what are you doing?
Yeah.
And
Get your life
then
together.
the one time I did like kind of almost like have like the
Yeah.
reaction, but I was an adult. I didn't. And
I told Josh before I refuse to ever be the last couple
end
ones
two,
in
yeah.
line. Like I would do the stuff where I would like put it in my armpits and put it on my foot and all that kind
Right.
of stuff and then give it back to the jar. But I was not down for
and
the craziness of
and
the
I think
end.
I think that also goes back to how Josh and I clicked so much is because we just didn't care.
Yeah.
In a sense, like it was for the kids. Like
Well, when Kyle Zakor was on with us, like in the very beginning,
Oh my gosh,
the three
yeah.
of us together were kind of like an unstoppable team.
It was
in a lot of ways.
unbridled. It was unbridled chaos when
It really was.
when we were given free reign to do whatever. It was unbridled
Because we,
chaos.
like you said, we just didn't care. I remember the very first VBS that we all did together, and this will lead into a skit that we can talk about.
Yeah.
But the very first VBS that we ever did together was a Wipeout theme, and so Kyle and I were talking about it, and so we went to the thrift store and bought full suits from the thrift store, and those suits we wore the same suit for 5 nights in a row.
Yep.
And this is going through a mud pit, standing under Toilet Town, which at that
Yep.
point in time was like a bunch of toilets lifted up in the air that they dumped like this concoction of
It was like cream corn and like
beans and syrup
yeah.
and jelly and all kinds of stuff through it. But we wore those suits the entire week, and I think that the best that suit got was going through the mud pit to get
semi
quote unquote washed.
Mud pit in a cow pasture.
Yeah,
let me
yes,
preface
made
that.
from water that cows had been in. If that
Yes.
kind of gives you any
Right.
insight into that. So that same year though, we started doing the skits as well, and the first skit that we ever did was we just call it Banana versus Gorilla.
Mm-hmm.
And so the premise of that skit was that every night of the week the skit built, and the first night of the week was we had a person in a banana costume that would
Right.
come out, and a person in a gorilla costume that would come out from the opposite sides of the stage. And that same Trollo Low song that we were just talking about a minute ago. Or no, it was Tiptoe Through the Tulips.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tiptoe Through the Tulips would be playing. If you've never heard that song, just go look it up. You'll understand why it was
Yeah.
so funny. And these two would come out from either side, and as they were crossing in the middle, the banana would kind of, or the gorilla would kind of like shoulder check the banana and then like glare at him real hard. And as soon as he did, the music would switch from Tiptoe Through the Tulips to just like blaring like screamo
Like,
metal
yeah.
music. And the first night, the gorilla would beat the tar out of the banana and leave him basically like broken on the ground.
Right.
And then second night,
Well, but then like two people would come in with the banana.
That's right, yeah.
And like pick the banana up, dust the banana off, and then they would like walk off arm in arm.
yeah. So the second night, those same people that helped the banana up the first night would show back up with him, and the gorilla would be by himself.
Right.
Same thing would happen. Same music, same transition into metal music, but the three of them, the banana and his two helpers,
beat the tar out
would
of
beat
the
the
other.
tar out of the gorilla.
Yep.
And so you guys see where it's going. Every night it went back and forth.
And it
so
just got exponentially bigger.
Yeah, and more people joined into the fight every single night. And so by the time we get to the final night, it's the battle royale.
Mm-hmm.
The banana and the gorilla both come out from either side with every leader that we could muster.
Right.
So we got every adult possible. We put them in funny costumes if we could, like as much as we possibly could. And we gave everybody weapons.
Right.
And so
when we say weapons, I mean we had pool noodles, we had wiffle ball bats, we had metal trash cans,
I was about to say, yeah, trash cans with trash can lids.
briefcases.
Actual baseball bats.
What else did we have? Like
Chairs.
chairs, lid to trash cans.
Some of them just had random objects that they would pick up and stuff. And the point of it is that some of the objects were relatively non-lethal in a sense. And then some of the objects were designed so that we knew who was getting hit by what and at what times.
We kind of planned everything out before the kids got there.
Yeah, because we wanted to make sure that, like, number one, it was going to look real and sound real.
Right.
But at the same time, we didn't actually want anybody to go to the hospital.
Right, exactly.
Which we managed.
Yeah, it was. I was close, but
That's true.
It was essentially like our version of like WWE and stuff like that. Like it was like we knew quote unquote what we were doing.
Because when Josh says that he was close, myself and another person put a metal trash can over top of Josh, which was a snug fit.
Yes.
And then once it was on top of him, I drop kicked the trash can, and then the other person hit it with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
While Josh was inside of it. So we got to a point where we dented the trash can in so much
that it had to be like pried back open just so I could get it off of
we
my...
literally had to stick the baseball bats and stuff up inside of the trash can and bend it back to a normal shape to get it off of Josh.
Right, yeah.
So we almost sent him to the hospital by almost breaking ribs, almost breaking his face, I think, and getting him stuck inside of a trash can. So it was a great time.
Oh, it was a good time. All for Jesus.
That's right. So that was like one of our first big skits that we ever like pulled off and stuff as far as the danger stuff, because I feel like that was very close to the top on the danger level as far as the skits that we did over time. But at the same time, I think that we brought like 3 or 4 others that matched with it over time as well. I think another favorite of mine that always comes to mind was the superhero wax museum.
That was great. So we would get a kid up on stage, like we would get 3 leaders, and one was like a quote unquote tour guide. And this was when Marvel was ramping up, like all the Marvel movies are coming out and everything like that.
Yep.
So we would take them to a quote unquote superhero museum. But it was the kid didn't know that it was an interactive museum.
Yes.
So we had, I think The one time we had, I know I did Batman once, the Hulk, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, and Aquaman. Aquaman was Aquaman and the Hulk, I think, were the two reoccurring ones that we had.
Yeah.
Because you'll find out here in a second. But so we would, each kid, the leaders would be up on stage, and the kid would come up with a tour guide, and the tour guide would explain, like, oh, this is Batman, go ahead, and he would have his, like, he would be in a superhero pose.
I was going to say, yeah, you've got like 5 leaders that are all in superhero poses, like, depending on which of the superheroes they were representing.
Right. So each of them, like, as you would walk up to them, they would be, like, quote-unquote, activated to where, like, one of their hands would go up. Mm-hmm. And the leader would be like, all right, so just, like, push down on their hand and they'll activate. They'll, like, say something really cool and everything. So the kid would go up, like, I did Batman one time. And the kid pushed down my hand, and I sprung to life. I was like, where is she? And, like, start grabbing the kid by his shoulders, violently shaking him back and forth, and just, like, yelling stuff in his face as the kid was, like, their eyes would get super wide, and
it's hilariously terrifying for the kid.
And then you would just go completely inactive and go back to being still.
Yeah.
like nothing happened. And then you would go down the line.
And so, yeah, some of the other ones, Wonder Woman, when you activated her, had a lasso. So she would, like, throw the rope around the kid and slam him to the ground. And she's like, tell us the truth, all this kind of stuff. And then she would, like, without even picking the lasso back up, just go back into her.
So they would be on the ground, like,
they're just
tied
laying there,
up and everything.
Twitching and stuff.
And then they would always end with Aquaman.
Aquaman was so good.
So Aquaman would just...
Let's talk about Hulk real quick before we go to Aquaman for the final one. Hulk was one of my favorite ones because you get to the Hulk and he touches the hand, and of course, the Hulk just goes Hulk smash
and picks the kid up,
picks him up, throws him on the ground, takes their fist and beats on him. And to be fair, we're not like actually beating them, but like because I know some of you guys
we would always pick kids that were willing participants. Like we wouldn't just pick some new kid to come up on stage and because
like Jeremy Gall was one of the ones that we did, and so
he was always a good sport.
Not only was he a willing participant, but he deserved everything he got on stage.
We love you, Jeremy. And then, so you would get to Aquaman. So Aquaman would just be standing there because Aquaman doing Aquaman things. He's about as useful on stage as he was in comic books. Yeah. So he'd be standing there and his fist would come up and the kid would like hit it and he would just spray water in the kid's face.
Yeah. He's been standing there the entire time with a mouthful of water just waiting for this moment.
And I believe, I think was it Tyler?
Yeah, Tyler Bush was the one that...
So he spits the water out, and the tour guide's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, that's not supposed to happen. And he's like, oh, okay, well, hit his hand again to see if I'll say something to you. Hits it again, and spits another full mouthful of water.
Equally as big mouthful of water.
Into the kid's face.
How he managed to separate that much water out in his mouth, I don't know.
Because none of the leaders expected that to happen a second time.
Yeah.
And so it caught us off guard, but it was probably one of the funniest skits that I was ever a part of.
Yeah. That one was hilarious. We had a bunch of other ones, and so what we're going to do is we'll try to come back around and tell some of these stories on occasion throughout other episodes and stuff. We wanted to give you guys some of our favorites today, and we want to dive into a story now that Josh and I talked about ahead of time. And what I'm going to do is kind of give you a little bit of a lead-in to what this entire story was like, the trip surrounding the story was like. So when Josh and I, it was the final time that you and I went to the Believe conference together, which is a conference for junior hires.
Right.
Phenomenal conference. We loved the Believe conference. We went several years with Kyle. Then we took the students after Kyle.
And then I think the last year that we went, it was Mike, Nancy, and Melissa and I went.
Yep, that's right.
Up to Holland.
So there was a group that took them after I was not the youth pastor anymore and stuff. And so as we went on this trip, there were a few students, and I'm going to say this: they've matured, they've grown, they've gotten smarter over time. Praise Jesus for that, because on this trip.
But, I mean, you have to think, we are going with 6th through 8th graders. So the maturity level isn't necessarily there to begin with.
Right.
And, you know, if you've ever been around kids, you know, working in schools, working in youth ministry, kids ministries, whatever, or just around teenagers in general, you're always going to have a couple.
You're gonna have a couple. There were quite a few.
Yeah, there was a few in this trip.
And,
I would say
there were 2 in particular, and we're not going to name names.
No,
we said not. For everybody's sake, we're just not going to put names out there, other than like our names and the names of leaders and stuff, because the leaders don't mind. But we had 2 kids, and just to give you like a little bit of insight, one of the ones was like we pulled into McDonald's the second day that we were there. And as we pull into the parking space at McDonald's, one of these students,
one of our intelligent students,
very intelligent students, he leans forward and goes, "Is this where we're eating lunch at?" To which I wanted so badly to just sarcastically respond to them, "No, buddy, we just thought we'd stop here for the restroom and then go to a different restaurant to eat," something like that.
No, we're actually walking across town. This is the only place we could park.
Yeah, this is the only parking space in the entire city. So I got asked that one of the days, which we had already been to the conference.
Right.
We left the conference, I think, to go get lunch.
Well, yeah, because like it's just basically you have breakout session, or you have a session, worship, and then you have like a break, and then you come back for another session.
Right.
Like, so it's the conference doesn't feed you like some do.
Yeah,
like you're on your own.
So we had to go off campus to go get food and everything. And so we left from the conference. We came back. We pulled into the same parking space that we had left previously.
Right. And
one of the students leaned forward and asked me, "Is this where we're parking?" I'm like, "Dude, I literally can't help you guys. There's nothing I can do." To go back to my father's favorite statement, you just can't fix stupid, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm like, buddy, I don't know what to tell you right now. Just get out of the van, please. Get away from me.
And I'll make and I make fun of my own kid for this. Like, he's the smartest dumb kid I know. Like, book smart, everything like that. Like, smart as a whip. Like, doesn't have to try in school, but like common sense is just
out the
non-existent.
Yeah. I've known quite a few people like that in my lifetime. So we're on this trip, and one of those students that I've already mentioned becomes the center of the hilarity for this trip as the trip is coming to an end, oddly enough.
Right, yeah.
We've been at the conference for
it's
3
like
days.
It's like three days. It's
technically speaking,
it's like 2 sessions the first night. Yeah,
evening of the first night.
And a whole day of stuff, and then 1-2 sessions first thing in the morning.
Yeah, like the morning time.
Then we
go. Yep, exactly. So we're leaving the conference. To set up kind of the imagery for you, the arena that we're in for the conference is across the street from the parking deck. But they have a bridge that goes from the top level of the parking deck over to the arena, and the street runs underneath that bridge.
And it's just a footbridge. It's not like a traffic bridge.
Yeah.
It's solely a footbridge. It has the fencing and stuff up top, and like, cars are going. I think it was 4 lanes. There was 2 each way.
I think it was just 2 lane.
Was it just 2 lanes?
Just 2 lanes underneath it. But yeah, so like this 2-lane road is the way that you get in and out of the parking deck, and it is underneath this walking bridge that we have to go across to get from the arena to the van so we can start the journey home. So everybody's out, right? So the way we kind of did things was most of the time we would have a couple leaders that would be in the front of the pack. We would divide up and keep the rest of the leaders behind the pack.
Just to make sure everything's herding the right direction.
Right, so we're herding them towards the van. Exactly. And so as we're moving our way out of this arena and heading towards the van, we have all the kids are in front of me. So I'm towards the tail end, and then Josh and some of the other leaders, our friend Brooke was with them, they're back behind me. And kind of, all just making sure the students are moving in the right direction.
Because like we're all tired, we want to go home. Like we have a 3.5 hour drive home.
Oh my gosh, there's another hilarious story that came out of that weekend too that I'll have to tell at some point, maybe at the end of this one. So that it'll tell you why I in particular was so tired and why I was irritable and all that kind of stuff. So we're making our way across the bridge. I look ahead, and like I said, student that asked a dumb question before is standing up there, and I see the student look down into his hand. And so it's like I see the entire process of what's happening. He looks down in his hand. He's holding a pen, an ink pen that we have received from the conference. So it says Believe on it, all that kind of stuff. And it's just their branding stuff. So he's sitting there looking at this pen, and then I see him look down at the street below. And then I see him look back at the pen and down at the street below, and I'm going, he's not going to. There's just no way. And I see his hand rear back, and so as he pulls back and gets ready to yeet this pen off of this bridge into traffic down below, I scream his name. Now,
which prompts myself and Brooke and the majority of the kids that were in the back half of the group to look back at
and
Josh.
not just them, hundreds of people that are crossing this bridge at this point in time, because the whole conference is
letting
leaving.
out, yeah.
And so we've got all these students and leaders and stuff like that. And when I say that I screamed his name, I didn't scream at like high pitch.
Yeah.
I screamed it like a death metal screamer would scream someone's name.
Yeah.
It was gruff and low, and it was like one of those, you could tell that the person that it was directed towards was going to die that day.
Yeah. Like it was like that. Yeah.
And so I yell his name as he throws the pin off of the thing. And soon as he makes eye contact with me, I do the right here, right now, like scream at him, and I'm pointing to the ground below my feet. And so he walks over, and as he approaches me, I do the this is where everything starts taking a turn for the leaders anyways.
This is, yeah, and then
I say, look at me, and do the like pointing to my eyeballs thing. And he looks me in my eyes, and I stand there and just let loose on this kid for what felt like an eternity, what was probably like 45 seconds worth of me yelling at him and
berating him.
But I'm just like, what are you thinking? You could have caused a car accident. You know that's illegal. Like, I'm just like, I'm going on the whole rant. And then finally, like, when I've kind of gotten all of the anger out of me to a degree, I'm just like, go to the van. I don't want to see you anymore. And so the kid is now in tears, which I kind of feel bad about that. Like, I probably could have handled it a little bit better on my end. But he's in tears. He walks to the van. And when I finally, like, in my anger, like, turn around to try to get some, like, validation from the rest of the leaders, I turn around to see my entire leadership on the ground laughing.
Oh,
like, they're just rolling.
It was probably one of the funniest things to see, because you see Josh just yelling at this kid, and he's just, like, kind of, but because it was so unexpected.
Yeah.
So, and then, like, Brooke and I turn to each other, and we're trying to, like, get the kids to move and like go away from the scene of the crime.
Look away from the accident, children.
Nothing to see here. Nothing to see.
Move along.
So we're hurting them back, trying, like, we are in tears, like, but not laughing. Like, we are trying so hard not to laugh, because one, we don't want to make the kid feel worse than what he did. Because of what he did.
You don't want to embarrass him anymore, because I'd already done that job pretty well.
So we're getting back to the car. So then, thankfully, I'm pretty sure he was in the other van.
He was, yeah, because I was like, I needed him to be as far away from me as possible.
So Josh,
at that point in time.
slams the door, you know, kind of in a sense does the Chris Farley, everybody on the bus, good, great, grand, wonderful. No yelling on the bus.
That's very accurate.
So I'm sitting in the passenger seat with Josh.
Fuming, dude. Like, I was so angry at that point in time.
I was sitting in the front seat. Brooke was sitting in, like, the back seat behind Josh. Yeah. So then all of a sudden, like, for whatever reason, I can't remember who exactly started. It was either Brooke or myself.
I think Brooke was the one that sent the first one.
First with the eyes.
Yeah.
Look at me, I'm captain now.
Yeah. So from Captain Phillips, the movie, if you're not familiar with it, you've probably seen the meme 1,000 times, but the pirate guy is up with Captain Phillips on the ship, and he's doing the two fingers pointing into his eyeballs. He's like, look at me. I am the captain now. And so Brooke sends this meme over to our phones. So I get this, and I look down, and I can't help but start laughing at that point in time. It kind of diffused
the whole situation.
Yeah. But then, so Josh and Brooke are both, like, dying laughing along with me, because we're in a group text. Right. It's the three of us.
Yeah.
And so we're all sitting there just dying laughing and stuff like that. But I'm trying to get my crap together so I can, like, drive the 4 hours home and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm getting everything together, and my phone starts, like, continually going off.
So Brooke and I are just sharing memes back and forth relating to this, and then it just spirals into just sharing memes.
In the beginning, I started with that because, like, the second one that came across was that same pirate guy wearing a Captain Crunch hat and like,
Captain Crunch now.
And so
we found every variation of that meme or GIF or anything like that.
GIF? I'm sorry. Stop it.
It's GIF.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's not.
The people who created it
said it was GIF.
Said it was GIF.
They said it was GIF.
Anyway.
I disagree. Whatever.
Of that meme, and so it just kind of spiraled from there.
So we drive I drive 4 hours home.
Not looking at his phone.
Yeah, not looking at my phone. And we stopped one time to get food and stuff like that, and I think fill up on gas or whatever. So we stopped one time, but I did not look at my phone because it was my directions and stuff like that. I had to set up to tell me where to go and stuff. And so didn't check it. We finally get home after 4 hours. We unload everybody. We get that student in particular into his parents' vehicle.
Explain the situation.
Get out of
here.
Like that type of thing. So we get everybody taken care of. All the students are gone and on their way home. By this point in time, it was like close to midnight. It was late.
Yeah.
And so we wrap everything up. And I get home. It's super late. My wife, Brooke, is already asleep. Daughter Sky is asleep. So my house is quiet. And I get home. And of course, because we've been on this road trip, the first thing I have to do is go to the restroom.
Right.
So I go to our downstairs bathroom. So it's furthest away from everybody. Sit down and pull up my phone to 86.
I thought it was more than that.
No, it was 86 text messages. And every single one of them is a meme from Josh and Brooke. And guys, for the listeners out there, when I tell you I sat on the toilet longer than I should have because I wasn't using the restroom, I was sitting there and I mean wheeze laughing. Like I had the door closed, but I was like trying not to laugh out loud so that I wouldn't wake my family up. And so I am just like hurting myself to hold my laughter in, laughing at all these memes that they had sent over the course of this 4-hour trip.
Yeah.
So the really cool thing about it is that meme group, the three of us, has continued now since that first like meme was sent across of the Captain Phillips thing. And it's been how long?
So I went back and I screen grabbed the picture of like the last day there. It was February 18th, 2017.
Jeez Louise.
So it's been 8 years.
And guys, when we say like it continues, it's at minimum like once a week.
Oh
that
like,
all three of us
it kind of slowed down there for a little bit.
Yeah.
But like it has continued, and like it's been through multiple phones.
Oh yeah,
like
we
just keep
I've
going
been through
back
at least
and
like 3 phones since that point in time.
So and it's hilarious because we don't necessarily recycle memes that often either.
No,
which is the crazy thing.
It's very rare that we have a copy.
Josh will yell at me because we'll go back and forth sending reels, and I'll send him a reel that I find hilarious, and he's like, I just sent this to you.
Yeah.
Bro. Like, do you even care about me? Like, no, like it'll be the same day.
Like, yeah. Why do you hate me? Like 10 minutes before.
But like, okay, so my beef with reels, is I want to click on your message and then I want to scroll up until you're done sending me messages, all of your reels. Instead of like you click on one reel and then it goes to a completely random reel.
Oh yeah.
That's my biggest. That's my biggest.
I totally
beef
agree.
with reel because then I'm like,
I don't understand why they don't make it so that you can just watch one after the other that the person sent you.
Because I won't send you things because I thought that you sent them to me and I don't want to get yelled at. So I won't send you, and then I'll be like, I swear I just sent this, but then it's like, oh no, I didn't because I thought you had already sent it to me.
Yeah.
So like that's my biggest beef with reels, but like I
don't know how you send reels as fast as you do.
So
it drives me crazy sometimes because I'm like,
well, sometimes it feels like when I'm at work and I can't look at it, so I'll come back to like 30, 40 reels. But no, so the thing that I found is if you click on a reel and then you keep going, at the bottom it says send to you. So I just click that and I'll just go back. But apparently my reel feed is just more funny than yours is because I can just rapid fire the reels.
Well, mine are like, I feel like my algorithm is full of that kind of stuff, the same type of humor that you and I enjoy and stuff. So I find them really fast and stuff like that. But it's like there's some times where it feels like you and I are like in a battle because like at nighttime, Josh and I will both be like, I'm chilling in my recliner at my house and he's at his house, and we're both like sending them back and forth to each other. But it's like I'll send like 2 and the time that Josh will send like 12, and I'm just like, I don't understand how he does it so fast. But
because my ADHD, I'm literally on my phone watching YouTube, playing a video game because like
I'm doing the same things. I think that's part of the problem though, is I'm just not as capable of doing.
You're just not as locked in as I am.
Right. So let's take a break for just a second to talk about our sponsor, and then we will come back and share another youth group story. This week, we're going to tell you again about our sponsor, the Salt Collective. We've been mentioning them each week, and we hope that you don't skip over these ads because it's very important to us that we get to promote our friends at the Salt Collective. They are a business that exists to help small businesses and nonprofit organizations to be able to help promote themselves on social media, to be able to organize their business better. And so they exist to be able to come alongside small businesses and nonprofits and help them to just do business better. And so as they do that, one of the cool things that the Salt Collective does is they take the businesses that partner with them by hiring them on, and they partner them with the nonprofit organizations that they work with, so that what is paid from the businesses goes to support the nonprofits through the Salt Collective, so they get to do more work for nonprofits as more businesses hire them on. So we love seeing that partnership. We love seeing what they're doing. They work with several of the nonprofits here in our area. They work with several small businesses and friends of ours. And they have done tremendous work to be able to help grow their social media presence, to help them with marketing. And we believe that they could help you as well. So if you're a small business owner, or if you know a small business owner that's looking for some help in marketing, and especially in the world of Facebook and Instagram, all those online places that you can exist, if you know somebody that's in a small business that would like to hire them on for that purpose, or if you are someone that works with a nonprofit organization, we would encourage you to check out RemainSalty.com, or you can go to their Facebook page by searching for the Salt Collective. You can also check them out on Instagram as well. And that we know that if you go check out their website, go check out their social media pages, you'll see the Salt Collective is a great organization doing great things for small businesses and nonprofits. And we would love for you to consider hiring them on for yourself. Check out the Salt Collective, RemainSalty.com. We appreciate it. Thanks. All right, I've got another story for you. This was one that, for your insight, I guess, and for everybody else's insight, is a story that happened at my first church that I served at down in North Carolina. So it was in Southport, North Carolina. And it was my first youth group that I worked at. Jordan McKeithen's commented a bunch of times on things that we've done and stuff. And he was part of that youth group. So when we first got there, we had... I'll say his name because I don't think he'll care either. But there was a young man named Kyle who, when I started at Southport, if I remember correctly, I think that he was a junior in high school. Okay. He was either a sophomore or junior because I had him for a couple years in youth group. I had his brother who was also in there with us. And then I was trying to think, I don't think they weren't related, but there were a couple other kids that were like cousins and stuff and brothers that were in there. So we had a few different families that were represented that were all like real tight. They knew each other real well. So Kyle, when he was in high school, was a wrestler. And you know how wrestlers get, and I'm not picking on Kyle, I'm just saying just
wrestlers in general.
They think that because they wrestle, they could take anybody down, right? Like they think they could take you in a sense. And I'll admit, I've never been like a big guy in my life. Like I'm 6'1", but I was like a beanpole for most of my life and stuff. And so I've never been like intimidating in that sense. It's like people look up to me, but not in the way that's like a good way. It's like I'm just tall. So Kyle, from the time that I started as a youth pastor there, it seemed like every single Wednesday night or whenever we got together, Kyle was kind of egging me on.
Okay. As students do,
and teenage guys in particular, and I was one. I know exactly what it's like because I would egg on the leaders in my youth group all the way up until the point that Mike Group, shout out to him again because we've mentioned him before on the podcast. But Mike, who was my youth leader, one day he was a wrestler actually all the way I think through high school and maybe into college. I don't remember exactly, but Mike taught me a lesson because finally one day I pushed it too far and he put me into this move that I don't remember what he called it, but essentially you end up with all four of your limbs spread out in different directions and it's painful and embarrassing and all that kind of stuff. And Mike did that to me to kind of get me to shut up about wanting to fight against him. So I learned my lesson then. So now let's talk about the lesson that Kyle learned. Kyle kept pushing me and he's just like, hey, let's me and you, let's fight, let's just do something.
Let's do it.
Thing. Yeah. So finally, one day after youth group, I was like, all right, man, if you're going to keep pushing this button, let's just do it. Let's get it over with. And I asked him, I said, because I was a big UFC fan at the time, watched a lot of UFC. I had done a tiny bits of jiu-jitsu practice with some friends of mine that knew jiu-jitsu real well. So I had a little bit of a fighting kind of background in that sense, not much at all. And at the same time, I was watching a ton of fighting.
Okay.
So when I asked Kyle, I said, okay, man, what's the rules? What are we going to go by for this fight? And he said, tap out. And I was like, are you sure you want to do that? And he said, yeah, man. He said, we're going tap out. So we get prepared. Take off shoes, take off belts, like anything that could like cut somebody or hurt somebody, everything out of the pockets, all that kind of stuff. And we square off. And one of the other students, is like the referee basically is like, all right, 3, 2, 1, go. Well, I knew as soon as we started the fight that Kyle was going to shoot for my legs because that's what high school wrestlers are trained to do.
Yeah, you shoot the legs.
So he dives. As soon as he dives, I swing my arm under and lock it up under his chin and stand him up. So he's in a guillotine, right?
Right.
So as soon as I get him into the full guillotine and my arm's kind of locked in, I just said, go ahead and tap, man. And he's like,
no, I'm not going to.
Well, he said, you haven't done anything yet. I'm not going to tap out and stuff. And I think that he was under the impression that I wouldn't do anything to make him tap out in a sense. So he kind of pushes back against me. I push back against him. And then I decide, okay, what I want to do is rock backwards and kind of see if I could toss him over my shoulder, get him on his back, and then I'll get on top of him. And then we'll figure out a way to kind of get him to give up. As soon as I rocked backwards to try to toss him over my shoulder, it put enough pressure on his neck that the lights went out. And I mean to the point that I tried to pull, to throw him over my shoulder, and his whole body went limp. And so as soon as it did, I squatted down and was like, all right, man, give up. Because I thought he had just put his body weight on me so that I couldn't throw him over my shoulder.
Right.
And there's a kid that's sitting over, it was Nick Stiller is sitting over on the side. He's got his phone out and he's looking at his phone, and he looks up briefly and looks at Kyle's face and he goes, yeah, he out.
It just goes right back to his phone.
And right back to his phone. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I roll Kyle over, and sure enough, man, he is white foam in the corners of his mouth, eyes rolled back in his head, like he's dead. And that's all I could think was like, oh my gosh. And so
you broke rule number 1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, rule number 1 in youth group is don't die. That's what we've always said. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And so I roll him over and start like rubbing his stomach. Well, so while we're trying to get him woken up, it was like seconds, like not a very long amount of time, right? Somebody else has said something about the fact of like, oh my gosh, Kyle's passed out or whatever. And so his brother, who is also named Nick, is across the room. And I don't know if he was playing ping pong or whatever, but he's across the room from where we are. He looks over and sees his brother unconscious on the floor and comes running and screaming at the same time across the room. Oh my God, you killed my brother. So he jumps over the sofa, lands beside us, and is like freaking out and stuff like that. Kyle takes a deep breath. He sits back up and he kind of does the like, what happened thing, like he couldn't put the pieces together. So I had to tell him like, I think that I choked you out. He finally kind of like regains himself.
Right.
Now it's the talk of the youth group. At least all the guys and stuff like that are just like, oh my gosh, Josh choked out Kyle, all this kind of stuff. So I check on Kyle a bunch of times throughout the rest of the time that he's there. He finally like gets all of his wits back about him and stuff, and him and his brother go home. Well, I found a Bible that had been left behind and opened it up, and it was Kyle's Bible. He just forgot it. I'm like, all right, I'm going to take it to his house and give him his Bible back and just apologize again. By the time that I make it to their house, the story has been told already. So I walk into their house to give the Bible back, and both of Kyle's parents are doctors. So as I walk in the house, Kyle's mom is like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? And I'm like, yeah, I saw this coming from 6,000 miles away. Yeah. So I'm like head down, sheepishly, like, yeah, we can talk. And she was very kind. Leslie was like, she's like the sweetest woman. And she goes, the human brain needs oxygen to be able to operate. And she's like, so she's explaining things to me in like a very doctor way, and I'm like, this is fair.
A very doctor, but slightly condescending way.
Oh, very much, and I deserved it, right? And so she's like, the human brain needs oxygen to live and thrive, and I'm like, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that.
And she very calmly just goes, so maybe let's just not do any more wrestling while we're at youth group. And I go, that's a super solid idea. Right. It's like, yeah, we can stick to that one. Thank you very much. And then she was very gracious. She's like, I know boys are boys. You guys were just playing around and stuff like that. She's like, I know you didn't mean to, all that. So she was super gracious towards me, but it was just very funny the way she was just like, so the human brain. I'm like, yep,
Yep,
I can
you're right.
appreciate
Yep,
that. No
yeah.
more wrestling the students at youth group so we don't get CPS called on us.
Right.
So, anyways, that's my story of how I choked out one of my students. Within my first year, I think, of being in youth ministry.
Right. So I kind of started a little series that we're going to kind of work through every couple episodes or whatever. So I was looking through, like, because, you know, we just went through a list of, like, the world's largest that are in Ohio and, like, cool, fun, niche attractions. I know we did some really dumb Ohio laws in one of our episodes. So leading into next episode, you know, throwing this out there, teaser.
Okay.
We're going to talk about a couple of the bad things that happened in Cleveland, or at least one major thing that happened in Cleveland. You know, like the history of like Cleveland, like you hear Cleveland, there's one phrase that a lot of people think of.
The mistake on the lake.
The mistake on the lake.
Yeah.
I was looking, and like a lot of the stuff like is just kind of, you know, dumb stuff, things like that. But I found 9 reasons why Cleveland is the mistake on the lake.
Oh boy. I can only imagine what's on that list.
There's a couple good ones. I'm just going to read a couple of these. Apparently, and this is just, I found this on Google, through Google. In the 1970s, every building that was built in the city was missing floors 6 through 9. Like, the numbering system was wrong.
Okay. They just didn't number the floors.
Right. Yeah, it's not like there's like gap in between.
Correctly. I was like, how? That's magic.
Like, you know, there's been like a lot of the major issues stemming from Cleveland was, you know, the manufacturing industry and everything, like the whole Rust Belt moving out. But like there's an area in Cleveland called the Flats. Like there used to be like a bunch of restaurants, everything. It hasn't been updated since 2001. I think they're trying to update it, but like a lot of the businesses closed. Apparently, and I didn't know this, and again, validity, but apparently the Cleveland police once arrested 75 people from running from them. Like they were trying to stop them, 75 people. Turns out they were running in the Cleveland Marathon.
No. That's great.
And I want to dig into this story.
Yeah, we need to find out
I
more
need to
about
dig
that.
into this story. So
75 people got arrested because they were running in the Cleveland Marathon?
Yeah, because the
Can
cops...
you imagine the cops were like,
what's
stop, come back. And they're like, dude, we're just running in a race.
Yeah.
Like, get down on the ground.
Right, and then obviously the sports snafus that Cleveland has had.
Oh, boy.
You know, the Cavs winning their first championship for the major...
The Cleveland Browns.
The Cleveland Clowns, you know,
hey,
who
easy.
You know what?
Yeah.
With the decisions they've been making, that's completely valid.
I got friends I still got to see those.
I'll take it. I got big shoulders.
Yeah.
But it's just like, you know, everything is just so downtrodden in Cleveland, and it's really funny because that's not the only major city in Ohio, but you go Ohio, everybody thinks Cleveland.
Yeah, well, everybody thinks about Cleveland and stuff like that, but I think it's like it's an interesting dynamic because being from North Carolina, when we first thought about like moving up here and stuff and started talking about Ohio, you know, like one of the things that everybody points out when you're going to move to this area is, you're right outside of Akron, but you're like 45 minutes south of Cleveland.
Right.
And they say that
like it's a good thing.
like it's a good thing in a sense. And it's like, it's one of those things that like until we moved up here and I went and experienced Cleveland, that you're kind of like Cleveland has like a 4 or 5 block area right around where the stadiums and stuff are for all the sports teams and junk. There's this kind of block around there that's not so bad. It feels very much like a big city downtown.
Right. Well, also, did you know that Cleveland has the second largest theater district in the United States?
I didn't know it was the second largest. That didn't surprise me, though, after seeing
like
it.
Playhouse Square. Like, it's also home to the world's largest chandelier.
Yeah.
In the center.
That hangs right there outside,
Which, I mean, is like, you know, from an arts perspective, like, you know, that area gets a lot of traffic, but I don't think it gets the credit it deserves.
Right.
Because outside of Broadway in New York, it is the largest theater district outside or in the United States.
And it's nice looking. It's a good
gorgeous
area and stuff like that. I mean, that's the whole thing is like, there's little pockets of Cleveland that are not so bad, right? That are nice areas to be in. I've always enjoyed going to Guardians games and stuff like
yeah.
that. Like that's a beautiful area up there to go to the ballpark. You know, a lot of good restaurants right there in that immediate area.
Mm-hmm.
I like Westside Market. We love going over there.
Westside Market is amazing.
So there's all kinds of like little cool things. Little Italy there up there. The area around the art museum and stuff like that is beautiful. Like there's like there are some really cool areas.
You have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You have the Great Lakes Science Center.
Still never been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Neither have I.
Really?
Like, I've lived here all my life, and I've never been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I've been next to it because we usually get Great Lakes Science Center passes.
Yeah.
Which is nice because
So we did that too. Yeah.
because if with the Great Lakes Science Center, because of how reciprocity works with different museums and stuff, you can get into COSI for free in Columbus.
That's why we did it, because we went to COSI.
It's one of those things where like there's so much things that Cleveland has to offer.
Yeah.
But everybody remembers them for the snafus that we have, like Balloon Fest 86.
But that was the thing that I was going to say, though, is like I feel like outside of living up here and going to Cleveland on a more regular basis, there's nothing in Cleveland that anybody outside of Northeast Ohio is going, we should travel to Cleveland for this thing, right?
It's not a destination place.
It's like one of those things that's like there's plenty of cool things there if you live close enough to justify the drive.
Right.
We're 45 minutes away. I mean, that's like nothing.
Right.
And so there's, people here will shoot up to Cleveland for a day.
Right. Well, and a lot of people that live around here work in Cleveland.
Right.
So it's one of those things where it's the commute. And if you want to go for an adventure, go to Columbus, which is an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So
hour
it's
and a half,
not
2 hours. You go to Columbus, and Columbus has tons more stuff
right, exactly,
than what Cleveland has as far as attractions and things along
right.
those lines.
And it's not even, it's square miles wise, it's not even that much bigger.
Right.
And then, you have Cincinnati, Dayton, Youngstown, Toledo. Like, there's a bunch of different cities, but I think, Cleveland does get a bad rap. The only reason why I'm kind of buttering Cleveland up is because of some of the other stuff that we'll talk about in the next
I think
episode.
that's fair, though. I mean, like, Cleveland really is a more interesting city than it gets a lot of credit for.
Right.
But at the same time, it's not interesting enough to be a destination city.
Yeah,
and that's its downfall.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of it does have to go with the downfall of the steel industry and production and stuff getting moved.
Oh, absolutely.
The automotive industry.
Yeah, I think when they lost the steel industry in Cleveland and they lost the rubber industry in Akron, those were kind of like the final two nails in the Northeast Ohio
corridor. Yeah,
corridor. Because like we lost everything that made those two big cities worthwhile. In a
well,
sense.
and it's the same thing where I live. There was a PCA, Packaging Company of America, that was in Rittman.
Yeah.
And huge factory and everything like that. They moved factories, and it basically like would have been my generation that grew up.
Right.
And it was just gone. So it
still got Morton Salt though, baby.
Yep. Like, and that's another crazy thing that I kind of want to dive into is where that salt vein is.
Yeah.
Is like a 10,000 year salt vein. Like it's a huge salt vein.
Right.
And then there's a bunch up in Cleveland too. But yeah, I just wanted, like I said, I saw that and I had to say I need to do a deep dive into the potential 75 attempted arrests during the Cleveland.
Hilarious.
See, another reason why I don't run.
That's valid. That's valid. I'll give you that. Cool.
So, but like I said, in next episode we'll kind of dive into some not so fun things about Cleveland. So
some more mistakes on the lakes.
Yep.
Cool. As we wrap up today, we want to remind you guys to take an opportunity to go leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this at. So if you're on YouTube, make sure you give us a thumbs up and give us a follow on there. Maybe share it out with some friends. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please make sure you go give us a 5-star review and leave us some information with the review. If you give us the written reviews, it's actually better than just leaving just the 5 stars.
Yeah.
5 stars is awesome. And we would ask you that if you're going to leave a review at all, please leave 5 stars. It helps us out in the algorithms and stuff. So more people can get to be entertained by this and have fun with this. Again, we've said it from the very beginning. This podcast is equally as much about Josh and I being able to sit and share stories and tell these things that we're telling you guys as it is about people's entertainment. But we do want people to be able to kind of discover this and get to hear more about it and stuff. And so if you could share it out, if you can give us good reviews so that people can get to know the podcast and get to listen to it more often, that'd be great. And then you can also find us on Facebook and Instagram.
Yep. And YouTube. We also have our everything is on YouTube.
Yep.
I know our Frogman stuff is on YouTube, and kind of want to try to drive a little bit more of video side and maybe do some fun stuff, even if it's just little gameplay snippets like some reels, stuff like that. So
Josh and I have been talking about putting together some of those things. As a matter of fact, we played Sea of Thieves together the other night, and that was very funny. And some of the things that we were doing. So we hope to share more of that kind of content on YouTube with you and everything. But please make sure you go like and follow the social media pages. Yep. It's the greatest way to be able to keep up with us. We announce when upcoming episodes are coming out, and the day of, or usually like the day before, and then the day of, we'll tell you what's in the episode, so you can kind of look forward to those things. And then after we do those throughout the week, we will post things that have to do with those different topics and ask you for feedback on it. And so we want you to give us feedback. And and like we talked about at the end of this past month, we're trying to do the last episode of each month. We will read your listener comments and talk about those as well.
Yep. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us that you want us answered on the podcast. Again, the only caveat is you cannot ask a direct question to each one of us. You get what you get out of the answer.
That's right. So, you have to ask the question, and then whoever answers it, and that's how we roll.
Exactly.
So you never know which Josh you're going to get. Cool. Other than that, we hope that you guys have an awesome week this week. We love you, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye. Fade out to some kind of weird thing that we include at the end of the podcast each time.
Right, yeah, and just the randomness of whatever we do.